Hi, I'm Dr. Syra, and I wanted to share with you a concept that many of my clients have asked about over the years. And it's something that I learned personally many years ago from one of my own mentors. And you may have heard these words used in other contexts. And so just follow me as we unravel the masculine and the feminine principles. So, if we take an approach that the human experience is one where we're trying to come to balance, right? So not too much this, too much that, kind of the middle way. Then this principle actually can be really eye-opening for people as far as what needs to shift in order to make us feel more balanced. So the masculine principle or the yang principle is about structure and order and achievement and goals. And the feminine principle, which is the yin principle, is about flow and spontaneity and connection and beauty. And the idea is that these two principles together in balance help us feel a sense of fulfillment and contentment in our lives. So let me go a little bit deeper. Each one of us will have kind of a propensity to one or the other, no matter your actual, like, your gender. This is not about that. This is about these principles that happen internally for every single person. And we're just using that binary because it helps to kind of make sense of it, but it's not like, take your own gender out of it. This is not about that. It's just words that we're using to. Another way of conceptualizing would be like the qualities of the moon and the qualities of the sun, like the sun being the masculine principle and the moon being the feminine principle. So we're just using that language for now. So when we look at the masculine, the balanced masculine, that's where we're able to have structure and order and discipline, where we're able to feel like we can set a goal and achieve it. When we tip into the untrue masculine, that looks like rigidity. That looks like being really stoic and never having an experience or an expression of an emotion. That looks like stubbornness, right? It has to be your way. You're kind of unmoving. You're difficult. You're really, really driven. Maybe even to the extreme of workaholism, and you have to kind of be doing all the time, or you don't feel okay. And what another way to conceptualize that is the rock, right? So just like steady, stuck, unmoving, but not a lot of like life force energy there, right? It's just kind of like working all the time, but never getting any sense of like enjoyment of pleasure out of life. So that's the untrue masculine. And on the spectrum, then we can go all the way to the untrue feminine. So the untrue feminine is somebody who's always mired in emotion. There's a lot of chaos and drama in their life. There's not a lot of structure. There's a lot of like, oh, we'll see what happens. But not in a sense of like being in the present moment, more in like I'm out of control, I'm in chaos mode. So that's the untrue feminine. And another metaphor for that would be the swamp, right? So you have the rock on one side, which is just stuck and stubborn and unmoving, and the swamp on the other side, which is like a lot of movement and energy, but not a lot of sense of achievement or not a lot of structure. So somewhere in the middle is the goal, right? The goal is to move out of those untrue extremes into the middle, and the middle is what we call the river. And so with the river, you have the river bank, you have that clear structure for the flow, for the feminine that's kind of coming through for the water. And if you look at your own life, you may find that there are times that you're too much into the masculine, you're too much on that extreme where you're working hard, you're achieving, you're goal setting, you're getting to things, but you may be hitting a point of like a sense of like meaninglessness. So you really have a lot of achievement and success, but don't feel that inner contentment. You may find yourself at times in the untrue feminine where there's a lot of like action and activity and things are happening as far as your emotional life and your relational life, but you're not actually getting to your goals. You don't maybe even have any goals. You're just kind of like floundering. You're not able to look after your basic needs, financially, for example. So, or you're, not following through on your commitments, or you're letting people down all the time because you're kind of caught up in the emotional life. And so another way to think about it is, the head and the heart, right? We need both. We need our mind and we need our caring and our loving spirit to come together in relationship and work and all the places that we show up. So That's kind of the extremes. Now, in the middle, in the balance point, that's where we can be led by inspiration and creativity, but also create the structures that are needed to be able to move forward. So I sometimes hear in kind of the personal growth space, like be in the present moment, let it go, be in the flow. And these are kind of really feminine, um, in the way that we're describing it, kind of the feminine principles, like be in the moment, be in the flow. And that's really important to be able to learn how to be here in the moment. But equally important is the masculine principle, right? When it comes time to do something, then we have to be willing to do that thing. So a simple example is meditation, right? So while you're meditating, you're in that kind of feminine space where you're kind of open and you're receptive and you're allowing. But to actually construct your life in such a way that there's room for meditation, there's time for meditation, that's a masculine principle, right? And so a lot of people find when they meditate consistently at the same time every day, they kind of just get in that habit, and it's like they just kind of go into it much more easily. So when they have that structure, when they have that masculine structure in place, then the feminine, there's room for things to unfold, right? Because I've created a structure. Another example is meals, right? I know that I eat 3 meals a day. I eat breakfast, I eat lunch, I eat dinner. Now, what I specifically eat at those meals changes from day to day. Sometimes I eat the same meal for several days in a row because that feels better to me. But the actual engagement of eating, that is like a feminine example. Like I'm engaging in pleasure and enjoyment, but making sure my fridge is stocked so that I have some good options. That's the masculine principle. I have to make it to the grocery store. I have to buy my groceries. I have to put them in the fridge. So when it comes time to create a meal, I have the things I need, right? So these are some examples of how the masculine and the feminine work together in order to create the life that will be the most fulfilling for you. Now, many people, when they're stuck in the untrue masculine, it can feel kind of intimidating or uncomfortable to allow more of the feminine. And one of the first exercises I give my clients around the feminine is receiving, being willing to receive. Because people in the masculine tend to give more, they tend to action oriented and giving to others. And opening to the feminine means we're making space to actually receive. And another metaphor for this is the breath, right? The masculine principle is the out breath, the exhale, where we're giving. And the feminine principle is the inhale, where we're receiving. And you can't just do one, right? You can't always be in the receiving mode. You can't always be in the giving mode. There has to be that balance and that cycling through of both. So yeah, if you're finding yourself in the overwork, in the burnout, in the tiredness, in that go, go, go without a lot of fulfillment, then it's time to step into receiving as the first thing. Another way you can access the feminine is through noticing beauty around you or cultivating beauty around you. Beauty is something that really nourishes us, even though there might not be like a bottom line outcome for it. It does have an impact on things in your environment feel beautiful to you. So beauty is one way. And receiving is another way. For those who are in the feminine, the untrue feminine, and you're kind of in a bit of chaos and a bit of drama, and you're not actually getting to your goals, and you're feeling like you're floundering, you feel like you're floundering in life, then we need a little bit more of the masculine principle. And a really simple way to bring in the masculine is some structure. And the simple way that you can add in structure is to wake up the same time every morning, including weekends. Just wake up the same time every morning, which may mean eventually you start going to bed the same time every evening. That's a very simple way to bring more masculine structure into your day to day. Another way is, like I said about meals, right? For me, I had a terrible relationship with food for many, many, many years. And bringing in that structure of breakfast, lunch, and dinner without eating in between, that structure really helped me. That masculine, container really helped me to then feel more competent around food and more safe around food, and not kind of going into binge eating and other things that I was doing before, and snacking and just accumulating accumulating food in my body all day long. So that's another way, is to create a little bit of structure. And often when people are starting a meditation practice, that's the thing that like hiccups, is the masculine piece of creating a time and a space to actually sit. I have a space in my bedroom that's dedicated for my morning meditation, right? And it's not fancy. It's just a little corner in my bedroom that has a pillow there and a blanket, and I sit there. But having that container then allows something to happen within it. So that's the masculine and the feminine principle. The last thing I want to say about that is relationships. So for those of us who are in our untrue masculine, we tend to be overextending in relationships. We tend to be giving a lot and doing a lot. And those of us who are in our untrue feminine, maybe in a place where we're kind of taking advantage of other people, where we're not really giving much back. We're not really there for others. It's really all about us and our needs. And so that's another place that you can play and say, where can I come more into balance in the masculine and the feminine principle being one of receiving, the masculine principle being one of giving, which is maybe different than like gender roles. And that's not what we're talking about. It's about that balance within each individual person. So those are my thoughts on the masculine and the feminine principles, and how they can play out for you, and how you can kind of bring yourself more into balance and be more like that river where there's some structure and some direction, but there's also room for flow and spontaneity and creativity, those things that really give us juice and meaning in our day-to-day lives. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time. Bye.